What's up? This is Kong from X Faders, and in this video we'll discuss how to design custom vinyl for your Rane 12s, MK1 and MK2. Some of these concepts can be applied as well to Slipmats and actual timecode vinyl. So if you have any questions about the process, please let me know down in the comment section. If you would like a separate video to discuss how to design it for Slipmats, then feel free to leave that information in the comments section. I'll try and help you out. So the main reason I wanted to make this video is because if you ever considered creating your own skins or timecode vinyl or vinyl in general, they always tell you that you need to use Photoshop or have access to it. The issue with that is Photoshop is an expensive software application. In general, if you plan on only using this one time, or you're just not familiar with the software or how to do any graphics design. Now, by no means am I an expert at graphics design, but for this case, I feel like I can help you out through that process to be able to design something for your turntables to personalize them. So before we actually get started, I must say I'm not sponsored by or affiliated with any of the applications, brands, or websites that I'll show here. Just please, if you have any questions or have any concerns about copyright material, please contact the owner so that you won't have any issues in the future. So a couple of things you need to grab before we get started. The application is actually called Gimp. It's an acronym for GNU Image Manipulation Program. This program will serve the purpose as Photoshop, as it will allow you to open up those Photoshop template files. You'll also need an application called CYAN. This will allow you to convert the image over the CYMK format. And last but not least, you'll also need the control vinyl template, the PSD Photoshop template from 12-inch skins. They also have variations of this template to create vinyls, as well as for other turntable or DJing equipment. So check the description below. I will leave links to all these websites for you to easily access them. So once you have Gimp installed, just an optional thing you can do, this was just a personal preference for me, but what you can do is go into the edit at the top right corner and select preferences. The theme that's currently set up now has been sort of augmented from the default theme. So once you go into preferences, you can go down to the theme section and it will allow you to change the color, I guess, the representation. So whether you want a dark, gray, or light background, just to help your eyes adjust a little bit better to all the content on the screen, this may be helpful for you. Also, you can go down to the icon theme. When you first open the software, it's probably going to be set up for symbolic. So if you notice over here to the top left, the tools that you'll be using have just a contrast gray color, gray to white. I found it a little bit more helpful to switch it over to color. You may like the legacy configuration as well too, but this will just help your eyes to identify quickly what each one of the tools are. The next thing you'll need to do is go ahead and open up that PSD template. So that Photoshop template you downloaded from 12-inch skins. This is what you'll be using to design your custom control disc or vinyl. A few things I wanted to point out that's very important. Of course, in the top right and left corner, it has a little bit of information on what needs to be done when exporting. But what I want to do is pull your attention to the bottom left corner. It states that it wants you to use CYMK, color palette, as well as save it as a JPEG, and also verify that it is set to 300 dpi, which is dots per inch. So right here on screen, I selected the scale image just to verify that it is indeed set to 300 dpi. So when it comes to saving this document, you'll also need to save it as your name and the model. So the example down here below is John Smith _control_disc. So let's go ahead and take care of that right now. As you can see here, I already have a file with that title or name. So I'm gonna just click on it to replace it. But if you notice at the very end, there's an XCF. This is the file format for Gimp. Don't worry about it. We'll be able to convert it back to a PSD a little bit later. So if you have somebody that has Photoshop, you'll be able to provide it to them to offer you assistance. Now the final product will actually be exported as a JPEG just to save on space. But if you like to keep both file formats, you're more than welcome to. So another quick tip is if you lose any of the windows that we're working in during this tutorial, you can go to Windows at the top and click on Dockable Dialog. You'll be able to click on any of those windows and add it back to the interface. So with all that out of the way, let me walk you through the steps and what I did to design my control vinyl. So in my opinion, there are four major concepts. There is the background, which is the blue to green fade, the foreground, which is the gorilla, as well as my DJ name across the bottom, and a Q marker, which is the X faders. Now you can design this however you like. You can add more concepts, more elements, but initially you want to make sure that you have these core things in there when you're starting with your first control vinyl. So Gimp has a lot of controls and tools built in, and to keep this video relatively short, I want to just focus on the tools that I use to create this demo control vinyl. And again, if you have any questions, feel free to drop them down in the comment section. I'll try my best to answer them. And if it is something that is reoccurring, I'll try and make a video specifically to speak to that. So the inspiration for this particular video was, I'm a huge Psych fan. So if you have a moment, check out the Psych Season 7, Episode 12, titled Dead Air, and you'll understand the reference to this demo vinyl. So to start off, I needed to create a color palette. What this will include is the primary colors that I'm using in this particular control vinyl template. So what I'm doing now is, once you go over here and click on palette, I created a new palette called APNG. You can name it whatever you like, but essentially what I'll do is go in here and add the colors for the gradient background. So the first thing we're going to focus on is the background. So what I'm doing now is adding in the color. So clicking that icon there with the plus button, I can add my first color, which will be red. Second color in the list, and you will do the same process for each color, is click the page with the plus again, and then click on that color to change it. But the second color will be orange, sort of like a deeper orange. And for the last color, which will be yellow, we're going to do the same process again. We're literally just going to click on the page again and add in that final color, which will be yellow. And this is primarily for quick access because it's going to be colors that will be used frequently, but this is mainly for creating a gradient for the background. So now that we have our colors selected, we'll go back over to the left hand side of the screen, and what you're going to do is click and hold on the paint bucket, and it will bring up the gradient tool. So you'll click and hold and select the gradient tool. So if you just prefer a solid color, you can choose the paint bucket. And of course, we're going to create a new layer, but just to show you here, choosing the paint bucket and choosing one of the colors for the palette, you can just simply click on your canvas and it will change the color. So now we'll go ahead and create a new layer. So at the bottom right hand corner, you'll click on new layer, and I named it background to easily identify it. So what this did was created a new layer that is transparent over the whole image. So by me clicking on the canvas again, it changes the whole color to yellow, i.e. the background transparency. And now I can click on the color again, the bottom color, which is the background color, to change it to another one of the colors in my palette. Now, at any point in time, if you want to revert back to an existing point, you can always go over here to the left-hand side and click above where you made the changes. So as you can see, there's the paint bucket, as well as the yellow and the red. But now we'll go ahead and focus on creating that gradient. So what I did was went over to the color palette, right-click, and use palette to gradient. So now I'll go over to the left hand side and click and hold on the bucket field and switch it over to gradient. So now we have a gradient from red to yellow selected. As you can see here, it's the APNG under the gradient section. So I'll click and hold from the bottom and drag up, and what they'll do is create the gradient from red to yellow on the background layer. And as you can see, it's covering up all the other images, but what we'll do is we'll adjust where the layer sits on the template. So dragging, clicking, and dragging it down below the mask will place it on the canvas so that you can see the existing 12-inch skins template. So now we'll go ahead and import our subject. So I went to Fiverr and had this image design. Of course, because I didn't want any copyright issues, but I wanted an image that looked very similar to what I was going for in this control vinyl demo. So as you can see, the image is very large, even larger than the template itself. So what I'll end up doing here is zooming out. There's multiple ways to do it. You can either do the drop down at the top, or at the very bottom of the screen, you can just click on it and change your percentage here. So going out to about 12%, we can see the outline of the full image. So I'm switching it over to scale. So I can literally click on that image and then grab the corner and resize it. Now, again, if you hold shift, you'll be able to resize it and keep the aspect. So that sometimes is helpful so you don't distort an image. But rule of thumb, don't take a smaller image and make it larger. It will end up distorting it to some extent. So once I have the image actually resized, and right here now I'm just showing a different way, you can actually lock the dimensions over there and resize it as well. But I feel like it's easier if you just use the shift key. But all I'm doing now is sort of moving it and positioning it on the canvas. We'll make changes a little bit later, but I just needed to get it down to a size where it's manageable at the moment. Also, bear in mind to adhere to the outside line of the template. That is the cutoff point. So you want to make sure whatever you place in the template or on the canvas, that it stays within that outside border on the template. So now that I have everything placed, I'll go back up to view and set the view to fit image to window. So it brings things back into perspective. Next thing I want to do is go to add a little bit of text to this image. So one of the key phrases in that particular episode, I'll go ahead and type in and place underneath the image. So the font that I was looking for was a sans serif rounded font. So the first one that I chose was Frankfurter. And by clicking on the A, I can switch it over to add text to my image. So right now I have it selected. I wanted to change the color to black for it to stand out, as well as the size is currently at 300, but I can adjust that just like I adjusted the image size. So at this point, I need to verify that all of the text and content is still within that red marker. Over here on the right hand side, you can click on the eyeball to hide any of the layers. So I had to hide the background just for a second because it blended in with the red on the dotted line. So I'm just moving things around, making sure everything is fitting and can be clearly seen. Also, in the very center, you have to be mindful that the spindle is there too. So any images that you have where you have text or anything, it will be covered up by the spindle area, which is noted in the mask. Okay, last but not least, we need to add on our final touches. So if you want to use a Q marker or vinyl marker, now's the time to do so. Now, if you still prefer to actually use a sticker or something like that, you're more than welcome. It won't affect anything, but you have the option to choose whether or not you want something at the 12 o'clock or around the 2 o'clock area. I would also recommend using a color that's highly visible. For this, I wanted to use the, I guess if you want to call him DJ Psych. I wanted to use this text here, which is the typewriter, American Typewriter Bold, and I use green just for the aesthetics to make sure I can easily identify it. Also, I want to rotate it 90 degrees so it will be aligned with the center point of the record. So the good news is it will snap to the center line of the record, so you shouldn't have any issues there to make sure it's dead center. The image itself is a little bit off-centered because of the way the image was designed, but at least the most important thing is the marker will be in the correct location. Now I wanted to circle back around and explain about the top left corner and the top right corner of the template. It's basically telling you that you need to hide the guides. So this is the most important step when exporting your image, is that you click the button where the eye is, or click the eye to remove the guides. This will remove any of the lines from the image. Now the lines that you still see on the screen are just guides from Gimp. But when you actually click that eye on the right under the layer section, it will hide that the markers and the outside lines so they don't get produced on your final image. As I mentioned earlier, there is a way where you can save it back to a PSD file if you want to share it with Photoshop. So if you hit File at the top and instead hit Export. Once you select Export, you'll also need to change the file extension to PSD. So right now I currently already have it set, but what you'll end up doing is clicking a Select File by Type. And once you expand that, you will see the option for PSD. So each time you do that, you're going to have to actually export it. You won't be able to hit save. So this next step is equally important as removing or hiding the guides on your image. What you also need to do is export your image as a CMYK color profile. And this software Gimp will not do it as native support. So what you need to do is use CYAN, the other application that we downloaded earlier, to be able to convert this image over to a JPEG with the correct profile. Now, I apologize in advance. I'm not able to actually show you this full process as far as having CYAN attached to Gimp, but I can tell you it's fairly easy. Where all you have to do is double click the application, close it out, Make sure you close out Gimp as well, and when you reopen it, you will actually have an additional tab at the top called CYAN. Now, at the end of the day, if you're actually having issues with that, you can still use CYAN as a standalone application, but it just makes it easier when it is built into Gimp. But as I mentioned, it was just as easy as double clicking the executable, and it once I closed out all the applications and opened up Gimp, the plugin was actually available for me automatically. So the easiest way to do this is literally if you you can take a look at the layout, but for the most part, you will need to select the US web coded SWOP version 2. This will convert it over to a CYMK file or profile. Also leave the quality to 100%. I know you can drop it down, but the file size will be so much smaller. I don't think it'll make a huge difference, especially if you want to export to the best quality when it's time for them to produce your vinyl. So once you have everything up and the save image window is up, what you'll do is verify the file name, which again is your name _control_ disk, and make sure you delete everything at the end for the extension and add .jpg, Juliet Papa Golf. Make sure you add that to the very end and it will produce a JPEG image. So now if you want to verify everything, you're more than welcome to open up that image in the Windows photo viewer. You'll be able to see everything there, and again, make sure that the guidelines are no longer there. And I guess just to do a spot check to make sure everything looks as expected. And for validation, I also opened up the exported version in actually Photoshop. So this is just a copy of that same one that we created in Gimp, opened up in Photoshop, and it looks pretty good, no issues, everything is exactly the same. Now if you're satisfied with everything, it's time to go ahead and purchase it from 12-inch Skins. So note, there are two different versions of this item for sale. There's one which I'm highlighting here is a standard, and the next one is the one with the different spindle. So they have a customized spindle. Make sure you have the template that applies to which one you have. This may make a difference in the output production, as well as the price, because this one here is $54.99, but notice the spindle area is a lot smaller, so which leads me to believe that it is the custom version. So here is just the standard version. You also have to choose what type of grooves you like. So I would also recommend the dots. If you plan on doing any turntablism, scratching, anything like that, I would recommend the dots. It does provide a better grip. The traditional lines may be very similar to the stock disc, control disc that you have up there, but I figured for me, I wanted to get the best possible option, which was the dots pattern. So I know there may be some confusion on the output format. The reason why I chose JPEG was specifically because of the file size. Now, if you do have a very detailed image, then of course you may want to choose one of the containers that are better quality. But as far as the JPEG, it's pretty good, even though it is a compressed version. But more importantly, the file size is only 5 meg. The limitation on the website is you can only upload a 25 meg file. So bear that in mind. If the file that you're working with is smaller or within the constraints, then you're absolutely fine. Upload, a PNG, a TIFF, PSD, whatever you have, or a zip file. But if you find that the file is larger than the upload space, then you have to reduce it or upload a compressed file. Once you're done, just go ahead and add it to cart, and then you can go ahead and purchase and check out. So before we end this video completely, and I want to say thank you so much for checking it out, and I hope it was helpful to you. But before we end it completely, I want to offer some tips as far as this process that may help you out. So first and foremost, if you're having any issues with developing a concept, you can definitely just go to websites such as Fiverr or any type of image design website and have them design something for you that speaks to your creativity or something like that, so you can just add on to your template. So another suggestion is stay away from copyright material. A lot of images are free that you can find on the web, but you want to make sure that it is for personal use if you do decide to use one, because you don't want to get into no copyright infringement issues. It's also important to use images that are fairly large to maintain quality. It's okay if you take a large image and shrink it, but taking a small image and trying to blow it up, those imperfections, those issues, that distortion will definitely show up on your final product. If there are fonts that you really like, so you see another image with a particular font that you like, you can use websites like MyFonts.com. This will help you identify what the font is, or at least something similar to it, so you can implement it onto your canvas. So once you choose your image, it will the website will analyze that image and give you the best example of what the font could be. Now, they do offer that font for sale on the website, but you also have the option to copy and paste that title over to Google and just look for a free version of the font. Even though this would definitely support the creators on this website, if it's just a font that's fairly simple, you may want to just find a free version of it. Now, it's very important that if you do find a free one, make sure it's from a reputable site. You don't want to end up with any virus or adware or spyware on your computer, but it's as simple as downloading the font, double clicking it, and it will allow you to install that font onto your computer. Be sure to close out all your applications dealing with the image design or graphic design so that that font can be loaded the next time the application is open. Another idea is if you just prefer a Slipmat, you can literally interchange this between turntables and some of your other devices. If you like this design that I have here, the particle effect, I can definitely do something for that for you. Just leave me some comments in the comment section that you are interested in that type of video, and I'll definitely help you out. So with all that being said, I'd like to thank you again for checking out this video. I hope it was very helpful to you. Also, this is the holiday season, so I wish everybody happy holidays. And if you're out there DJing or performing, best of luck to you. And that's all I pretty much got. Please like, share, and subscribe, and check us out on the website at www.xfaders.com.